AKAPADers, welcome back to another heroic episode of AKAPAD's Film Buff Podcast. This is along the line of where we're doing a good old deep dive in everything Captain America. Now, this is the Steve Rogers Captain America, and in my world, it's bizarre that I have to identify some of my Captain America content around which Captain America I'm speaking of. Because right now we have a major Hollywood movie with the same Wilson, aka the Falcon Captain America, or Falcon Cap as we like to call him in the world of comics. This is a documentary, the first 75 heroic years of Captain America. It's short, it's about 40 minutes, but it's got some good takeaway points. So I figured, since we're doing everything Captain America on YouTube and this podcast and other things along the way too, guys. Come on. I thought I would talk to you guys about this documentary. I feel like it's worth it. Check it out if you can. So here we go, guys. Captain America, the first 75 heroic years. Let's go.
Camera speed.
Down production, take one.
Action!
There's a pain in what we do here, AKAPADers. There's a true pain. Long intro. I recorded that intro a lot. Thank you all for sticking with me as I got through it. I just couldn't nail it. I just wanted to say too much. And that's always a problem. I like doing a good intro zinger. I even think a minute's too long for an intro. I know this one was a minute. I like to do a zinger, and I kind of like to pick it up. So here we go. Captain America, 75 years. This documentary is already old enough to where it's now Captain America 80 years of heroics. But this documentary is there. I think for 40 minutes, it touches on something. A recent occurrence that it kind of shocked me. And let's just get right into it. Recently, some time ago, Anthony Mackie, he was in Italy promoting something. I think he was promoting another Captain America movie. And they were asking him about, what does Captain America mean? And he goes, the term Captain America doesn't really apply. And it's pretty clear that he's speaking in a very general audience sense that's not bound to America. But people picked up on that now for this publicity cycle, and they're like, you anti-American mother effer. Now, I do feel Anthony Mackie should have had more whereabouts. I feel like handlers at Disney should have foreseen this. I think this was avoidable because he needed better coaching. But if we watch this documentary, we get this broad idea that Jack Kirby, the co-creator of Captain America, the other creator, Joe Simon, he didn't like bullies. And we hear this term within Captain America, the recent MCU movies. Well, recent within the last 10 years. And we hear more than one characterization that Captain America represents anti-bully. He's a big anti-bully. He just doesn't like bullies. And I feel if we're not discussing Captain America on the terms of America, we have to take this position. I think this position is strong. I think this position is real. And I have an idea that it's very conversational. Because we've all dealt with bullies. We've seen people getting bullied. It kind of tugs the heartstrings. And that's a lot of what Captain America does. If we were to define Captain America as a character to what he means within the scope of Marvel Comics, he's the significant character. In my view, he's more significant than even Spider-Man. Captain America on one end, and then for DC Comics, we have Superman. Both of them are parallel with what they represent, in my view. But this documentary really hits that point home very well. It does a great job in just understanding the era and what the industry was like leading into the creation of Captain America. The book comes out. The book's controversial. I don't know how much of that point is retrofitted because he was punching Adolf and America was not at war yet. So it was viewed as hostile. But then, Kirby and Joe Simon, they get drafted to go into the war. So they become soldiers. And then they come back and then they continue the book. I think those ideas about the creation of the character, to where people basically rallied against the publication of it. They thought it was aggressive. There were socialist movements and communist movements well within the U.S. at the time. And people maybe didn't know. They didn't have confidence which way some of that was going to swing. But then you go and you fight that very evil that you're trying to portray in your comic. It's one of the most meta things within comic book creation. It might be the comic book creation story. But this little baby documentary it's a great tool to just to get you excited about the character, get you excited about the portrayal. Recently, this past year, there was a Mike Mignola documentary that's not really a Hellboy documentary. It's called Drawing Monsters, and they dropped that around the release of the Crooked Man movie, hoping that one was going to pop and the documentary was going to add like a really good advertisement. It's almost like a part infomercial, and to push the Hellboy franchise into other merchandise. But that's not quite effective when Crooked Man doesn't hit. Now, we're going to be talking about some of that coming up. We will be talking about Hellboy, the Crooked Man, and the other live actions. I will be doing a Hellboy deep dive, starting with around the time of this release. There should be a Hellboy episode that's basically about the fall of Hellboy as a franchise, and some of that is from me observing some things within that documentary. But we're going to talk about that documentary separate as well. But yeah, AKAPADers, I got this for only a few dollars. It might have been like a $3 purchase on Amazon Prime. Yeah, and I feel like it's just a cheap entry to really start wrapping your head around this character. Because we can just say Captain America is roughly 100 years old. This documentary goes through the beats of him in other media, everything leading into it's either Captain America Winter Soldier or Captain America Civil War, of which one of those two films that this was released around. It encapsulates everything. We get into the 1970s double live action Captain America and Captain America Death Too Soon, the 1990 movie that they incorrectly they give you the impression that the 1990 Captain America movie came out in theaters. It did not. That's also a subject. I'm going to tell a very nice, very big personal story of that coming up. So there's some inconsistencies. They talk about the 1940 serial. I think it was the RKO serial series. It might have been 17, 18 episodes. But they say, oh, he didn't have a shield. He didn't have a shield in this black and white movie serial. I'm going to address that because we're also going to discuss the serial here. So this documentary is a good entry point for all of you because everything you see in this documentary and more, we're going to discuss. We're going to go through it on akapad.com. This documentary, how many times can I say documentary? But this film, also wraps up the idea that Captain America as a character really didn't get out of 9/11. Potentially on YouTube, I wanted to highlight his post 9/11 series. They have John Cassidy all over this documentary too, which is fantastic because Cassidy is the last great artist to touch Captain America, and he talks about them developing a series, and then 9/11 happened, and then they basically pivoted. So just seeing John Cassidy, be a part of all of this, absolutely phenomenal. But as 9/11 happened for Captain America, they kill him, which was the last time he got any real publicity within the comic. And then they bring in the St. Wilson Captain America, which they kind of shine and pump that stock too much over. There are some points in that I'm thinking like maybe I should make a separate documentary to counter some of these points that they make about St. Wilson and some of these other things I brought up. Maybe not. And by documentary, I mean a YouTube video where I just sit in front of my camera and spitball things for 20 something minutes. But no, AKAPADers, check this one out. I just feel like it's full of a lot of things. I think there's a lot of stuff in here that even like the not the casual comic book fan, but it's a comic book fan that thinks things are just the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And if you're curious about really the origin of the character, where he came from, and to a lot of people what the character represents, I think this is it. This does a great job in all of it. And hey, even going into the St. Wilson era, comic book wise, that could have been a banger. It just wasn't. So it just feels like it's a thud when they talk about it here, and that's where some of my positioning for that comes from. I don't care. You can rearrange alter egos within comics, but things should always return to center. You guys know that rule. Anyway, go check this out. Love you guys. Rock.
Okay, that's a wrap.